Now part of the Darkcast network. Welcome to Indie Podcasts with a dark side. This episode starts with a quote. Quote, "My husband shot himself. Hurry, he needs help. We were just fussing. He told me he couldn't do it anymore and he pulled out his gun. He's got a pulse, but he's not responding whatsoever." That was the 911 call made on the afternoon of June 25th, 2025 by 37-year-old Heather Hicks Auman. During that call, she told dispatchers that her husband, Mishael James M.J. Auman, had taken his own life after an argument. Around the same time, a neighbor had also called 911 to report the shooting, though it's unclear if they saw anything themselves or were they just repeating what Heather had told them. Welcome, lambs. Welcome to Love and Murder, Heartbreak to Homicide, your weekly true crime podcast telling you cases of relationships that turn to murder. I am your host, Kai, and in today's episode, I'm telling you of a case of a wife who claimed suicide. But we're asking, was it really? Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to Love and Murder on whatever platform you're literally currently listening on. Just hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any more cases of Love and Murder. You can also subscribe, which is the best way to subscribe, on our Patreon for free, patreon.com/Love and Murder. Because if you subscribe to the Patreon, you also get some bonuses for being a free subscriber. Like on Saturday, I put out an article for you to read. So if you didn't know, I do write some true crime articles also, and I put some of them on the Patreon for you to read yourself. So there is one for you to be able to read if you're a free subscriber. Not only that, whenever an episode is dropped, whether it's a surprise case or our weekly scheduled episodes, you get the reminder right in your inbox. So whatever email you signed up for the Patreon with, that will come to your email. Patreon.com/Love and Murder. But if you want even more, you want to just keep hearing my voice for whatever reason, you're like, my voice, I don't know, but thank you. Then you can sign up to one of our bonus tiers where you do get bonus episodes. And last week I dropped so many bonus episodes at the end of the week. It wasn't even funny. So I dropped an episode where this father of this girl just gave her to her uncle and said, here, you're now supposedly married to her. I dropped an episode of Charlize Theron. She had a true crime case happen to her, and then I had like a little heart-to-heart with y'all talking about that. I dropped an SKC, a serial killer corner about the necktie killer. So that was all on the bonus tiers, and the bonus tiers with the bonus episodes starts at $5 a month or above. So this week I'm actually dropping 2 more bonus episodes. So if you want all of that, then join at the bonus tiers at $5 a month and above. If you don't want all those bonuses, but you do want some bonuses, then you can join at the $3 tier where you do get the after show. You do get case extras. So like this episode is going to have an after show attached to it. So you do get an after show. Whenever I do put out after shows, you do get it at the $3 tier and above. Today's after show will be out for everyone because I usually put maybe sometimes one after show out for the public a month. But if you want just continued after shows and you're not looking for bonus episodes, but you want to support Love and Murder, you can sign up for the $3 tier. So it just depends on what you're looking for. And any tier you sign up for, don't forget that this supports Love and Murder. This helps keep us listener funded and helps me keep bringing cases and being the voice of the victims, which in turns you're a voice of the victim and helping be the voice of the victim as well. Patreon.com/Love and Murder. Now that I got that housekeeping out of the way, and by the way, whenever you sign up for the $3 tier or above, you don't get any of this intro. We just get directly into the cases. So there's that too. But anyways, let's get into this case of Love and Murder. When responders arrived at the home on Ridge Road, MJ was found inside with a gunshot wound to his face, positioned near his nose. He was still alive at that point and was taken to the hospital, but later died from his injuries. Before everything that happened that day, MJ was someone people in the community knew and respected. He was 37 years old and had spent 21 years working in the fire service. Wow, he was 37 and spent 21, what? So he started working in the fire service at 16? Maybe, I guess he was volunteering? Man, he spent his whole life as a community worker. That is amazing. He worked full-time for the city of Asheboro and was also a longtime member of the Seagrove Rural Volunteer Fire Department. People who knew him described him as someone who helped others, someone who made people laugh, and someone who showed up when he was needed. Neighbors like Melissa Bunker described him as a kind person who was always ready to help his community. His coworkers remembered him as a funny, kind man whose infectious smile would be forever missed. On the day of the shooting, the family had gone out together. Heather and MJ took MJ's 14-year-old son, Owen Auman, to a nearby lake to go fishing. During the trip, Heather and MJ argued, and at one point, Heather hit Owen. That's something that you're not going to do. You ain't hitting my child. That led MJ to throwing his wedding band and saying that he was done with the relationship. And I guess MJ felt the same as me because you're not hitting my child. After the fishing trip, they went back home and the argument continued inside the house. At some point, MJ told Owen to go outside and take care of the chickens. So he's trying to protect his son. Like, don't sit here and watch this argument. Go outside and take care of the chicken. While Owen was outside, he heard a single gunshot, and he ran into the woods scared before eventually coming back towards the house. When he returned, Heather was outside in the driveway on her phone. Inside, MJ lay unconscious with a gunshot wound to his face. From the beginning, investigators found Heather's suicide claim suspicious. 2 days later, on June 27, 2022, detectives conducted a recorded interview with Heather that lasted about 2 hours. By June 29th, just 4 days after the shooting, they had determined there was probable cause to charge her. The case changed from a suicide investigation to a homicide. Quote, following an investigation by detectives and consultation with the district attorney's office, a warrant for arrest was issued for Heather Hicks Auman, the victim's wife, for murder. Heather was arrested at her home and charged with first-degree murder. On July 1st, she made her first court appearance, was denied bond, and Heather was initially held in the Randolph County Detention Center. In August 2022, a judge decided the case would not be tried as a capital case, which removed the death penalty as a possible outcome. The case continued into the following year. And in February 2023, a judge granted Heather a $1 million secured bond, and she remained in custody until May 2023, when she was able to post that bond and was released. From that point on, she was placed under house arrest and was required to wear an electronic monitoring device and surrender her passport while awaiting trial. Why did they let her bond out? Why you initially had her on no bond? Why did you let her bond out? I don't know, maybe you thought she couldn't pay the $1 million secured bond? I mean, what do you need? It's like, what, 10%? So what is that? What's 10% of 1 million? 100,000? 10,000? I'm not sure. Yeah, 10% of 1 million is $100,000. So maybe they thought she couldn't afford to pay $100,000, but apparently she surprised us all. I don't know, but I also don't know why you gave her the option for a bond. Am I missing something, lambs? Let me know in the comments below. Are you as baffled as I am? The trial, which took place in early 2026, became a battle of forensic evidence and character testimony. The focus shifted to what the physical evidence showed and whether it supported Heather's claim that MJ shot himself. Heather was described to the court as being part of a marriage that wasn't stable, and she claimed to be, quote, deathly afraid of firearms. The prosecution's case centered on the forensic findings and argued that the physical evidence made suicide impossible. Dr. Paul Yall from the North Carolina Medical Examiner's Office testified that there was no soot or stippling around the wound, which meant that the gun was not fired at close range. He said the shot came from, quote, more than 3 feet away. Another expert placed a distance of at least, quote, 18 inches. Both distances were presented as inconsistent with a self-inflicted gunshot wound. At the same time, a crime scene investigator testified that EMS personnel, really, you had one job, Johnson. EMS personnel had given Heather wipes to clean blood from her hands before she could be tested for gun residue, which may have affected what they could have found on her hands. Facepalm, facepalm, facepalm. The gun itself became another point of focus. It belonged to Heather, who was what? Quote, deathly afraid of firearms. Why do you have a firearm then? And the gun had no fingerprints, none, not even when you put it away, none, not even from when you bought it, no fingerprints. Really? Suspicious much? Prosecutors pointed to that as part of their argument that the scene didn't match a suicide. It was supposed to be a suicide. Not that I'm laughing about suicide, but it was supposed to be a suicide. And you're telling me this gun has no fingerprints on it? So, Heather, what you want us to believe is that he shot himself, and while he was laying there unconscious, he came to and cleaned the gun and then went back unconscious? Really? Really? So anyway, the prosecution said that this scene didn't match a suicide, and they argued that the lack of fingerprints was suspicious. Yeah. They also brought in testimony about behavior before and after the shooting. Prosecutors told the jury that Heather never expressed sorrow over MJ's death. They also introduced evidence that she searched Google for condoms just hours after he was killed. So you're telling me that your husband, who you're trying to get us to believe that you had a really good marriage with, killed himself, and then you were just like, well, them's the breaks. Let's see if I could find on condoms now. What? He'd want me to move on. Just, ugh. And we're supposed to believe that you're the grieving wife. Prosecutors then went back to Heather's claim that she was afraid of firearms. Oh yeah, and that. MJ's brother, Trenton Auman, testified that Heather had taken part in a concealed carry class at their home, and that, remember, like I said before, the gun was hers, all of which directly contradicted her claims that she was afraid of guns. So the defense defended, and they kept their position the same from the beginning. They said that MJ took his own life. They said that Heather and Owen got along, and that it was MJ who pushed Heather into the water during the outing. In their opening statement, they told the jury, quote, suicide is a curious beast. They pointed to what they described as physical evidence supporting that claim. They argued that a bruise on MJ's finger showed he had pulled the trigger himself, and they also said there was no evidence of a struggle inside the home, and that Heather tried to help him by performing chest compressions. So first of all, you could have gotten that bruise from anywhere on your finger, which is going to be your index finger. You could have gotten that bruise anywhere. And it's not necessarily like, how hard do you think he would have had to pull that trigger for him to get a bruise on his finger while committing this unspeakable act to himself? How hard? And then to just find out if Heather and Owen got along, all you got to do is ask Owen. That's literally all you got to do is ask Owen. And also, I'm just picking apart their defense here. Also, nobody said there had to be a struggle. They were arguing. That's what they said. Nobody said they were fighting. So what are you talking about a struggle? They were arguing, and it's quite believable that she could have gone and gotten her gun and just shot him while his back was turned, or maybe she just came around a corner and he saw her too late. Who told you there had to be signs of a struggle? The defense also focused on MJ's mental state. They told the jury that he was unhappy in his marriage and he was taking medication for depression. Being unhappy in your marriage does not equal suicide. Family members were called to testify for the defense. Heather's mother, sister, and 13-year-old nephew testified about the relationship and described it as volatile. They also questioned how detectives handled Heather's 2-hour interview, suggesting that the tactics used may have influenced her statements. So now they're blaming police. They blame MJ. They're blaming police. Let's see who else they blame except the actual person to blame. At the same time, MJ's family pushed back against the idea that he would have taken his own life. Trenton and his sister Jenny Auman Laughlin both testified that he had no history of suicidal behavior. During the trial, the prosecution also addressed the defense's argument about the bruise on MJ's finger. To counter it, the prosecutor performed a dry fire demonstration with the gun to show that it could be fired without causing the kind of injury the defense described. They also pointed out MJ's background. As a first responder with more than 2 decades of experience, he would have been familiar with the reality of gunshot injuries, including suicides. That was used to argue that the way the shooting occurred didn't match what would be expected. Owen also testified. When asked about his father, he told the court, quote, "I knew he would never do that. I think it was my stepmom." Oh, but according to the defense, they got along so great, swimmingly, one might say. On March 4th, 2026, after weeks of testimony, both sides delivered their closing arguments. The jury began deliberating and reached a decision in less than an hour. They went in there, they said, everybody in agreement? Yes. Okay, who's going to give the verdict? You? Okay, cool. Anybody want donuts? Anybody hungry? Because we've been out there a while. No, everybody's good. We want to get this woman in jail. Yes, cool. Let's go back out. On March 5th, 2026, Heather was found guilty of first-degree murder. Immediately following the verdict, the judge sentenced... Have you ever heard of it moving this fast? They went to deliberate on March 4th. On March 5th, they gave the verdict. And right after that, the judge was like, all right, let me sentence you. That was fast. So anyway, immediately after the verdict, the judge sentenced Heather to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The judge also gave her credit for the first time she had already served while awaiting the trial. So let's calculate that. The rest of your life minus 3 months equals the rest of your life. Yeah, so okay, you're good. Melissa Bunker remembered MJ by saying that this case was, quote, absolutely astounding. We don't expect this in a small town. Absolutely. It's a loss for our community. He was a great first responder. He was a great firefighter. I just find it, I'm not talking down on her comment. That was a great comment. When people say we don't expect this in a small town, you don't expect this anywhere. Small town, large town, huge city. This is not an act that you expect anywhere, actually. Rebecca Short, a former co-worker of MJ's, remembers his personality saying, quote, he was such a great guy. He was kind and he was funny. He'd make you laugh until your sides hurt. Eric Beard, the Randolph County Fire Marshal, issued a statement on behalf of the Seagrove Rural Volunteer Fire Department saying, quote, MJ served the citizens of Seagrove for 21 years. This is a devastating blow to the fire service, in which MJ had very strong ties to, especially Randolph County. MJ's infectious smile, outgoing personality, and willingness to serve others will forever be missed throughout his county's fire service. And that is the case of the murder of MJ Auman. What did you think about that case? Do you agree, my fictional lamb jury, given all the evidence that we were given throughout this case, do you think that Heather did it? Or do you think that this was a self-inflicted killing, as Heather said it was? So maybe the court got it wrong. Let me know what your verdict would have been. And you can give your closing statements also. As a fictional lamb jury, I want to hear from you. Let me know in the comments below, and I will read it off in a future episode. And don't forget, as usual, as I always remind you, go over to the Patreon. Go ahead and join the Lamb Fam over there. There's a plethora of bonuses, not only the bonuses I put out last week, but you get past bonuses that has been there for 6 years. So there's a lot of stuff going on in the Patreon, patreon.com/love and murder. Not to mention this week, I do have other bonuses coming out. So join us at the $5 tier and above for the bonus episodes. If you want the after show, like the one that you're about to listen to, then join at the $3 tier or above, patreon.com/love and murder. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your support. Thank you so much for your time. And as I end each full episode, I want to remind you that it's, say it with me now, all love and no murder, y'all. Thanks for listening and stay tuned for your after show. Bye. Welcome, lambs. Welcome to your after show, the show that comes after your full episodes. It doesn't come to you every Monday, but when it comes to you, it's a doozy. These after shows are usually available only to the Patreon, but maybe once every month, once every 2 months, I might put them out for the public lambs to see what the after show is about. So just like today's on. But if you want all the after shows and bonus episodes, then join the Patreon starting at the $3 tier or above, patreon.com/love and murder. Now let's get into today's after show. The quiet town of Iberia, Missouri, with its small population of just about 700 people, is not the kind of place where you would expect a cold-blooded murder to happen. But on December 11th, 2018, an emergency scene would expose a twisted web of infidelity, poison, and a desperate plan to swap a husband for a convicted killer. You heard me. On that day, authorities arrived at the home of 37-year-old Joshua Murray, where they found the house smoldering. Amy Murray, Joshua's wife, was waiting outside, telling police she had just returned from a trip to McDonald's with her 11-year-old son and 2 dogs, only to find their home engulfed in smoke. You took everybody? She claimed that she couldn't even make it inside to save her husband because the smoke was too thick. Inside that home, in the master bedroom, Joshua was found dead on the bed. At that point, it just looked like a fire. But almost immediately, things didn't line up the way they should have. Joshua was described by his family as, quote, a good, faithful husband and father. For years, he owned his own construction business and was a well-respected, hardworking member of the community. His aunt, Sherry Thompson, would later write to the court about his integrity and strength of character, noting how much he was liked by those who knew him. Amy, who was 40 at the time of the incident, worked as a nurse at the Jefferson City Correctional Center, the JCCC. While working there, she met Eugene Claypool, an inmate serving a sentence of 25 years to life for a 2001 second-degree murder involving a lottery winner. Despite the bars between them, Amy and Eugene began a romantic affair. You're a nurse, somebody who helps people. He was in jail for 25 to life for second-degree murder, trying to kill somebody who won the lottery. Are you kidding me right now? And you have an amazing husband at home, according to these accounts, and you have a kid at home. And you said, screw all that, I'm going to have an affair with a convicted murderer. Okay. Recorded phone calls between the two revealed Amy talking about being, quote, tired of her marriage and, quote, not wanting to be around her husband. So, divorce. Well, I guess this is going to answer it. She didn't just want a divorce. She wanted a life with Eugene, even suggesting she would hire him an attorney to appeal his sentence so they could eventually be together. Now, if you watch these shows like Love After Lockup and stuff like that, which I don't watch, I really watch like a recap of it while I'm writing my episodes and researching and stuff. And every single time it's like the person in jail will love bomb you and make you think you're the best thing ever. And soon as they're out, they're gone. Now, I'm not saying 100% of the time, but the majority of the time. You had a husband and a kid, and you are telling this convicted murderer that you want to hire him a lawyer to get him out and then bring your kid around him. A convicted murderer. And I mean, why wouldn't you want a divorce? You didn't just want a divorce. You wanted a life with Eugene. You could have a divorce and still have a life with your convicted murderer. I don't understand her logic here. The investigation took about 3 months, and during that time, authorities dug into Amy's work at the correctional center and her relationship with Eugene. The recorded jailhouse calls became a major piece of evidence. Yeah, because in those conversations after Joshua's death, Amy told Eugene that they can now get married because Joshua was, quote, out of the picture. I mean, just get the neon sign and say you did it. In the meantime, as the case was still being investigated, firefighters determined that the fire had been intentionally set using an accelerant, and more importantly, Joshua hadn't died from the fire at all. A forensic autopsy revealed toxic levels of ethylene glycol in his system, the primary ingredient in antifreeze. The medical examiner determined that he had died before the fire even started, and once he was dead or incapacitated, the fire was started in the master bedroom. The cause of death was ruled a homicide. At the same time, Amy created what looked like an alibi. She left the house with her son and their dogs and went to McDonald's. That's why remember I said everybody? That is a strange coincidence that you took everybody, the 2 dogs, the cat, the bird, the fish, and the only person that was left at home was your husband. That is a strange coincidence. Even the dust bunnies under your bed were taken. But the husband stayed? So she took everybody and everything with her, and she was gone about 30 minutes before the fire was reported. When she came back, she told police she discovered the fire and couldn't go in because of the smoke. By February 2019, Amy was arrested and charged with first-degree murder, armed criminal action, arson, and tampering with evidence. Not long after her arrest, she posted a $750,000 bond and remained free while the case moved through the system. Why did they give her a bond? What is with giving people bonds? That legal process stretched out over the next 6 years. She was out 6 years while this was going on. During that time, Joshua's family continued to speak out. In late 2024, Sherry wrote to the court not just about who Joshua was, but about the impact of losing him. That letter came after years of waiting for the case to move forward, something the family had to live with the entire time. Now, did Amy have her baby, or was somebody else watching her son? And I said baby, I forgot it's an 11-year-old boy, but either way. As the case approached trial, both sides were preparing with very different narratives, and I could just imagine what the defense was saying. The prosecution built their case around the combination of forensic evidence and those recorded calls. They had toxicology results confirming antifreeze poisoning, fire investigators confirming the use of an accelerant, and recorded conversations that pointed directly to motive. They presented a case of a woman so desperate to be with a convicted murderer that she was willing to eliminate her own husband and burn down their family home. The defense tried to paint a very different picture because why not? Amy's legal team tried to argue that Joshua might have taken his own life by drinking that Joshua might have taken his own life by drinking the antifreeze himself. However, the judge was not convinced by this theory and did not allow the motion to move forward. The judge was like, shut up. No, just no. I know that's not the legal term for this, but shut the frick up. So that decision effectively shut down the defense's ability to present that theory at trial. By June 25th, 2025, the case reached a turning point. Instead of going through a full trial on first-degree murder charges, Amy entered what's known as an Alford plea. That meant that she maintained her innocence, but acknowledged that the prosecution had enough evidence to likely secure a conviction. It allowed her to accept the sentence without admitting guilt. What a piece of frickin' excrement. So I'm going to break down what just happened. The defense tried to defend. The judge told them to shut the F up. And when the defense found out that, look, the judge isn't going to buy anything we say because the evidence is overwhelming, here, I'm going to give you a way out that you can plead guilty, but still not plead guilty, and maybe you can come back later and appeal, like say, hey, I never said I was guilty of this. I still maintain my innocence. So here, plead guilty to this, and we don't have to move forward to a trial, because I'm telling you right now, if we move forward to a trial, you're going to be found guilty, not kind of guilty. Trash. As part of that plea, the original charge for first-degree murder was reduced to second-degree murder. Why is the prosecution giving plea deals? You're just handing out plea deals like candy. You could have won this with your eyes closed. So it was reduced to second-degree murder, along with the second-degree arson and tampering with evidence. The charge of armed criminal action was dropped, and she was sentenced to 12 years for the murder, 7 years for the arson, and 4 years for tampering with evidence. While the arson and tampering sentences are consecutive to each other, all of the sentences run concurrently with the 12-year murder sentence, meaning that she will serve a total of 12 years for killing this guy and burning his body. I'm shaking my head. I know you can't see me. Even with that resolution, the legal situation didn't end there. Amy still faces additional charges tied to her relationship with Eugene while she was working at the correctional facility. Those include 1 count of first-degree sexual abuse and 3 counts of offender abuse by an employee of the Department of Corrections. Lambs, all of this for a convicted murderer. A hearing for those charges was scheduled for July 21st, 2025 in Cole County Court, but there currently is no update on this. So now Amy has something in common with her convicted murderer, boyfriend, lover, affair partner, whatever. And they're both in jail together. I guess happily ever after? I mean, I know they're not in the same prison. I know they're not even in the same, they wouldn't be in the same cell block, nothing, because it's the women's prison, the men's prison, all that stuff. But I'm just saying, now you're in prison. You had a good job, a good husband, a good family. You had all of that. And you went and did this. You went after and had an affair with a convicted killer. And then you decided, no, divorce isn't enough. Let me murder this man who's the father of my son. Take my son's father away and then bring a convicted killer into his life. But, oh, I'm stupid. Even doing this, I should have known I was going to be caught because I work for the jail. So now I'm taking away both of his parents. Fucking brilliant. Sorry for the cursing. And that was heavy sarcasm of me calling her brilliant. Because this woman is dumber than a bag of rocks. If you don't want to be in your relationship anymore, murder is not the answer. Get a divorce. Divorce. Following her sentencing, Amy was held at the Miller County Correctional Facility while awaiting placement in a permanent prison assignment. And that was the case of a moron, 2 convicted killers, so I guess 2 morons, and a guy who was just trying to be a good husband and father and family man. What are your thoughts on this case? Let me know them in the comments below. That is all I have for you for this after show. If you're not part of the Lamb fam already and you want after shows like this, and especially me ranting my rants, then go ahead and sign up to the Patreon. You get the after show at the $3 tier and above. So you just have to sign up for the $3 tier. And that's patreon.com/love and murder. Thank you again for listening, and I will see you later. Bye.